Yeah, that's enough. That's enough, Battle Duck.
Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell, and welcome to our second ever Exquisite Corpse. Ducks in the chat. Yay! Excellent. For those who are not familiar, Exquisite Corpse is a parlor game with one person coming up with an idea. It passes to the next person who also comes up with an idea, only knowing what the previous person said. We are doing this with an Age of Empires 2 DLC. A fine group of friends have worked together to craft this masterpiece. We will use the term generously. And now we're going to talk about it. And just remember, for any given segment, the creator only knew what the previous person said. The first segment was handled by Diego. Yay, Diego! Woo! And he had the honor of coming up with our theme. He got to come up with the DLC name, a tagline, and a brief description. And here is what that looks like. Masters of the Siege. Blast, build, battle. The motto of the U.S. 16th Engineering Brigade. Description: step into the realm of medieval engineering with Masters of the Siege, where precision and innovation drive the art of war. Lead your engineers and sappers to craft ingenious machines and fortify your defenses with meticulous design. Harness the power of advanced engineering to outmaneuver your foes, whether you're laying siege with cutting-edge contraptions or reinforcing your stronghold against relentless assaults. I should note, while DLCs up to this point have only ever been regional, I explicitly said to him he could do something broader scale. Diego, would you like to share with us why you came up with this?
Well, hello to everyone. I was interested in Siege because it could be interesting to give a highlight to those lesser known units. Middle Ages gave a lot of advancement in technical and scientific progress, and I thought that was interesting to give a shout out in this Exquisite Corpse.
Absolutely, brilliantly said. And I will also add that I find Siege to be very underexplored in the game right now. Does anyone else have thoughts on this overarching theme before we see where it leads to?
Did you have an idea to have this DLC expand on the common units rather than be focused mostly on civilizations like previous DLCs used to?
I was thinking more about a unit focus, but as this Exquisite Corpse can be so wide, I thought everything could be counted on. But my main focus was about civilization bonuses and units in particular.
So are we getting like any civs in this DLC or something?
Yes, we are. We're getting several. And that is a perfect segue into our first civilization created by Anzu. Of note, I told a little lie at the beginning. Remember when I said that people got to see what the previous person stated? They didn't get to see all of it. And so Anzu only got to see the tagline of the DLC, Blast, Build, Battle. I shared nothing more than that with him. And here is what he came up with. The Muscovites, a gunpowder and defensive civilization. Their short blurb is control vast swaths of land with your forward fortifications and corner your enemy with your long-ranged streltsy and fast light cavalry. A+ for coherency on that one.
Yay!
Nice, very well done.
Anzu, we want to hear about your design. What made you come up with this, and what from Diego's tagline pushed you in this specific direction?
I was completely stumped by the tagline. So when I saw Build, Blast, Battle, my first thought, and Robbie can attest to this, was actually Ironforged Wars from Warcraft 3.
Yep. And he asked me, could this be a fantasy civ? And I was like, great question, but we're sticking to history for now. Maybe in a future corpse.
So that was my first thought, and then I was like listing all through my head all the relevant gunpowder civs, because like Blast immediately led me to gunpowder, and the Slavs had been on my mind because of Robbie's recent video. So I went with that and sort of expanded it. I had no idea that this DLC was supposed to be like unit focused. I thought it was regional or something like that. So this is what I came up with. To summarize, I went for the only notable gunpowder civilization that's I thought we were missing.
Well, there's also the Safavids, or the
That was
civilization.
one of the ones I was
Yeah.
going to mention too.
Yeah.
The Muscovites, to my eyes, are one of like the top 3 missing gunpowder civs. But my pedantic ass could name you a dozen. Like, shoutouts to Antiochus and chat. Not to be mean to the U.S. engineers, but it does sound like the tagline for a new kid's toy.
Yeah, exactly.
It really does.
Very coherent. Beautifully done. Anzu and Diego, you guys were sharing the brain cell for this one, because this actually really feels like it fits to me.
Now I'm afraid for what's coming.
Indeed. I was about to say, this
I
is where
apologize.
the coherency stops.
Yeah, that sounded like foreshadowing. I was wondering, did you have any more details than this? Like the actual details of what the Civ has and how it would play?
I wanted a Civ that could represent like all three entries in the tagline, ideally. So they would have something similar to what Slavs have currently with their Detonet's unique technology, where they would have cheaper but more spammable fortifications, and would sort of advance through map control. Presumably like hussars with a good bonus, perhaps some early gunpowder, like similar to how Streltsy work in Age of Empires 3, where they're like really cheap and really spammable but have good range.
That sounds pretty coherent to me. I did not demand any such details from anyone, so Anzu, credit to you for coming up with that without being prompted to. Let us move on to the next entry. This was done by Jallorn, who unfortunately is not here right now. He did not see the name Muscovites, of note. All he saw was gunpowder and defensive, the type, and he saw the blurb, though I censored the word Streltsy. Here is what he came to. The Imperial Sway, economic and naval. At the head of a powerful yet fragile economy, push forward on ambitious construction projects and overwhelm your enemies with a full commitment to mass mobilization or risk running out of steam and collapsing in the aftermath. Deploy your fearsome 5-banner ships and your heavily armored Mingguang cavalry units alongside a numerous, if vulnerable, army.
Just to clarify, he saw my blurb and was supposed to infer the theme of the DLC and then come up with a new civilization.
Exactly
Yes,
right.
I can see why you started thinking about China with like fortifications, vast lands, and so on.
He did not confirm it to me, but I suspect that he thought you did the Ming.
Could the Ming actually fit what Anzu wrote?
Yes, I do think so.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely,
The
100%.
the fast light cavalry is a little iffy to me, but like you could probably like get there.
The Sui Dynasty is a really interesting choice because it lasted like 30 years or something. Like, I get where it's going. It's a cool idea, absolutely.
It's a really cool
Yeah,
idea.
Weren't they pretty big in spreading Buddhism across China?
They were. That was a big contribution as well.
They also launched a disastrously expensive war with Korea,
Yes, they did.
along with the massive construction projects, just completely blew out their legitimacy within a few decades of them first setting up.
Next one up was Tomáš. All he saw was economic and naval civilization and the blurb. Here is what he came up with. The Pomeranians, a naval and hybrid civilization. Set sail from your fortified harbors on trade voyages and raids across the seas to bring back resources for your ever-expanding industrious economy and durable system of defenses. Hold your ground when challenged by invading forces, matching their uniform armies with diverse and resourceful combined arms, led by your Velunzani warbands. Outcompete your enemy in cost-effectiveness and flexibility, and you will be able to withstand even the mightiest of forces. The comparison to the Muscovites, that does place them kind of in the same region, so we kind of got there in the end.
I mean, from what I got to see, it clearly seemed like some random Italian city-state, fragile but powerful economy with naval focus.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, might as well throw in a second European fragile and kind of like less relevant naval power. So, why not the Pomeranians? I was basically thinking this is going to be some sort of like a naval expansion, and I felt like Pomeranians sort of fit the theme nicely, though they did things like definitely much differently. They were mentioned in the Wens build, by the way.
I believe they were also quite relevant during the Kalmar period.
What we would nowadays consider the capital of Pomerania, the city of Szczecin, that was in Hanseatic League.
Okay, so the next one is coming from Hrafn, who could not be joining us today. All he saw was the type, naval and hybrid, and the blurb. Again, I censored Velunjani warbands.
That is such an obscure name that I'm not even sure if he could be, if he would be able to look it up.
Oh, that's true. But I'll tell you right now, even if I didn't censor it, he would have had a very, very different idea. The Inuit, an infantry and hunting civilization.
Amazing.
Conquer the single most inhospitable region on Earth and thrive where others fear to tread. where the very weather will kill you faster than the wildlife will. That is where you call home, and the pitiless gods of the Arctic waste will destroy anyone foolish enough to take this land from you. He said the description didn't really give me much to work with, but I kept thinking it sounded like the Haida for some odd reason. And he said this was probably dead wrong, but that does make for a North American DLC, which obviously hadn't been done yet, so I just picked one of my favorite cultures in the region. That's like solid reasoning, because when I went back and looked at what I sent him, it did kind of look Haida-ish to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Haida is a Pacific Northwest Native American civilization who are really cool, and in my opinion are the second most plausible North American civilization after the Mississippians.
What should be the unique unit?
He thought it would be a dog sled, actually. He mentioned this to me. He was like, I think it would be really cool if they had a dog sled unique unit. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, this is
In the
like
open forum.
That's really cool. Like maybe a custom Inuit shield or something. That actually looked really pretty. So yeah, this is the point at which the Exquisite Corpse really took a gigantic pivot. Though from here on, it actually remained, I'd say, semi-cohesive as well.
So it's like two halves that are completely different from each
Yeah,
other, but
pretty
are
much.
pretty similar to in their respective halves.
Yeah, I would fully agree.
I'm saying at least we're in planet Earth still.
We are in the Northern Hemisphere. That's a win.
I'm impressed that we have two civilizations here that seem more obscure than the Pomeranians.
Yeah, indeed. The next one up was Antiochus, who gave us our first regional. I said he could give us a regional unit, building, or tech. And he gave us this. For the name, he proposed something along the lines of either Riv, Yaranga, or Chum. It would be a building, and this would replace the house and mill for all who get it, emphasizing a focus on hunting and minimal farming. This building would act as a drop-off point for huntables. This would force farms to only be built around town centers. And similar to Age of Mythology lure, it would be able to lure animals towards it to highlight local understanding of good hunting grounds. As you age up, you could get more pop space to make towns look more sparse and remote. Give us your thoughts on this one.
Well, because all I saw was the animals will kill you, the terrain will kill you, the weather will kill you. I don't think you gave me Arctic waste. So
I did not. I censored that.
I was like either Siberia and like the Niv, maybe North America, which I guess it was.
The
Of
Niv.
Sahara.
The Niv could return.
maybe. Yeah, of course.
I was thinking of that
And
too.
so I just went, you know what? I've got to make something for the Siberians.
Mm-hmm.
Nivk again. Because obviously the terrain is horrible, you can't really farm.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what if we try and just... If every civilization is like this, what if we just make it so farming is nothing you want to do?
It kind of fits with the Pomeranians and the Muscovites if it had an appropriate name.
That's a fair point, actually. Like I said, it's like the corpse is divided into two, and from the Inuits on, it's actually quite coherent. Like, yeah, the name is Siberian for this, but something like a hunting lodge would work quite beautifully for a lot of the other stuff we're going to be talking about here. Speaking of which, let's move on to the next one. This would be from Matt, who created another regional. This time he chose to do a unit. I think I almost censored nothing from that last one, but he didn't see the name, just that it was a building and the blurb for it. Here's what he came up with. The Huntsman. It is a regional unit that can be trained at the archery range starting in Feudal Age. It is modestly successful with its bow against enemy infantry. Where it shines is taking on wild game, as it can carry more food and gather it faster than a villager. It can be upgraded to a Forester and Royal Forester in Castle and Imperial Age, with the Royal Forester being able to spawn in nearby huntables for a wood cost. Matt, you bastard, you stole my idea. This is almost this is almost identical to an idea that I had that I was going to propose in a L'Avant-Garde thing someday. But take it away. Tell us about your idea here.
This was not my original idea. First, I was going to do like a regional tech, something where you pay a small amount and you would get like increased yield from hunting. I got about halfway through and then I'm like, well, this is a dumb idea. Let me rework that. And that's how I came up with the Huntsman. Age of Empires 2, it really doesn't have like good villager units that are specialized. So this is kind of like my first take on it. Now that I hear what the DLC is all about, in a way, he could also be good for like siege. You know, you pay him to take out the enemy's food stuff that's out of the walls, or God forbid you're on the defending side, give him some gold and he'll hunt.
So I think that he does kind of fit more with the original than most of the other stuff on this like half of the build. But I also think it's obviously extremely coherent with the last regional. Like it's very obvious how you got from that to this. And I also think that it actually is a unit that could really quite fit the game really well.
An old mod from the original Age of Empires 3, the Napoleonic era. The US civilization, they had specialized villagers, except rather than food, they were more focused on gathering gold. So that's kind of the similar idea I went with for this guy.
Yeah.
One of the European minor civilizations, I think it's the House of Oldenburg, but don't quote me on that, has a unit which is sort of like a skirmisher, so like a light infantry that counters other infantry, that can also gather from hunt.
Yeah, it's the Royal Huntsman from the House of Oldenburg.
The more I learn about AOE3, the more impressed I am with it. I think my problems with the game almost solely come down to the engine. But even then, I don't know. We'll see how my opinions develop as I learn more about it. Video on that to come, by the way. Nicely done, Matt. From here, we move on to Erik, who created our last regional. He just happened this way. I let him do building, unit tech. He chose a tech, so he had a building, a unit, and a tech all. And he came up with Hunt Hobbies, a technology that makes so that archer line units can hunt and gather from wild animals at half the rate and carry capacity of villagers researched at the archery range. I thought this was a delightful one.
I didn't even know that the huntsman could be trained at the archery range, or maybe it did. Was it one of those that you blurred?
I blurred it, yeah. It's very coherent, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I figured that, this sounds like a unit that can fight against other military units, but is mostly a villager of some kind. So I figured, you know, I kind of want to combine the two even further.
We could give hunt hobbies to some civilizations that don't get the huntsman to kind of do a similar thing to it, and vice versa.
When you're archer rushing in feudal age, if you see any wild hunt, you could then shoot it, gather the food, and then go back.
Indeed.
Go back to your base, or maybe continue with the rush, and then when you're done, go back with your food.
The other thing I like about this is, especially if in this DLC there was a thing that had some way to renew hunt resources, this makes even more sense.
Does anyone remember the previous Exquisite Corpse? We sort of had the opposite thing of villagers fighting with bows.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have archers who are hunting.
Bring back petards.
That's true.
It's like poetry, it rhymes.
All three of these, in a way, like kind of promote a defensive playstyle. Maybe, depending on how the lore would work from the building, you don't have to send your archers out that far to collect the food.
And I mean, there were some cities that actually had like hunting grounds within the city, so maybe they could help during the siege, you know?
It's the Royal Wood.
The Royal Wood, that's what it was called, yeah. From here, we get to the final entry in the corpse, and it's a massive one. Truly massive. Reason being is this was handled by Temudin, or Bub, as he sometimes goes. He helps me out a bunch with my ad split videos. And so I said to him, okay, my friend, I give you the final piece, which is add-ons and changes to the overarching game along with this DLC. So he wasn't allowed to add civilizations, he wasn't allowed to add regionals, but he was allowed to add commons, he was allowed to make major balance changes, and he was allowed to do remakes of existing civilizations and existing mechanics.
Oh boy.
I'm going to summarize it and just let the text scroll on screen right now. If you guys want to read along in chat, brace yourselves. Oh, wow. Pardon me. Discord actually doesn't let me send this message because it's too large. 1 second.
So maybe send them in parts?
Yep, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, part 1, part 2. There you go. Jesus. So we begin with, the assumption is that this DLC should be themed after the Americas, and that hunting and otherwise gathering food from farming should be made more worthwhile beyond Dark Age. New common building, Hunting Lodge, available in Dark Age. Food from hunting and fishing can be dropped here, but you can also unbuild the building and recover some of the resources. He has a bunch of new common text available from the Hunting Lodge. I'm not going to read through all of those aloud, but I'll have them play on screen right now, and you guys can read along in the chat. Another new common building, the Sheepfold, allows food from herdables to be gathered here, and herdables within the sheepfold soil will produce food over time until they reach their limit. And then he has some more technology available at the Sheepfold. Then he has an additional change, which is military units, aside from siege and ships, will not remove the food from animals after killing them, but decay will be increased until a villager starts gathering. Then a rework of the Xolotl warrior as well, including letting it be affected by some technologies and it isn't as of now. And Meso Civs can research bloodlines and husbandry at the stable, but aren't always available to both. And a Mayan overhaul alongside a new Mayan campaign, and villagers can now use bows against predators.
Yeah,
Shit.
that's definitely. didn't Spirit of the Law mention wanting to see the Xolotl warrior be affected by infantry upgrades?
Yes, that was one of his proposals, as well as he proposed that the Xolotl could be affected by Garland Wars, El Dorado, and Fabric Shields as well. So
yeah,
that,
like the various
yeah, that
unique
makes sense.
technologies.
yeah.
Wait a minute, it can't be affected by El Dorado because Mayans can convert a stable.
Indeed, but his proposal, part of
They
it
can
was that
start one
you can
on either
build
of them.
you can build the stable in Xolotls after converting a stable or 5 cavalry units, which means
Even
that
if they die to heresy, it says
yeah,
here.
even if they die to heresy, and that means that you can build new stables after converting a stable.
I
Let them-
actually quite like that.
yeah.
All of these, like both for the hunting and the sheep, are things that we like really need in the game. Because currently it's awkward because Gurjaras are the only people who know how to make cheese.
Now, I should also note that alongside this substantial bevy of changes, Temudin also gave me on my notes document 8-point font single spaced, almost a page and a half of notes as to explaining his like ideas. I'll stick it somewhere after in the Discord.
regarding poetry and rhyming, isn't it Russians in Age of Empires 4 who have the scouts that can bring back hunt to your base?
I think it is actually.
So we really did tie this all together.
Holy shit,
Yeah.
you're right. Wow, I didn't even think of that. So yeah, we did kind of bring it all the way back around to the Muscovites. That's sick. It also ties into Antiochus's proposal for the regional house mill building. So I could see if the hunting lodge was added, then Antiochus's regional would be like a regional subversion of that hunting lodge building.
I was going to have that as a suggestion where you could just keep moving around your little yurt thing.
Mhm.
So if both those buildings existed, it would be kind of fun just to keep moving around your economy and just annoy your enemy, where it's like, I'm trying to siege your main city, where is all of your food eco?
Yep. This thing ended up being way more cohesive than I could have imagined, and isn't nearly
Yeah, no.
as like on its face ridiculous as the Nivk one that we
No.
did last time.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Neither used to be in this deal.
Even though it was initially proposed by Diego as a siege DLC, it has become a siege and hunting DLC. So it's like
Yeah, very much so.
the two extremes of urbanized warfare and like far-flung, like more pastoralist.
Pastoral.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's
Yeah,
such
yeah.
a cool idea.
Hunting and sieging is, of course, in Age of Empires, those things are not really connected. But in actual medieval warfare, you would siege a fortress for months and months and months on end, and you would send out foraging parties, and you'd hunt, you'd live off the land while you
Yep.
were starving your enemy inside the fortress.
It makes for a
Yeah,
really
I
like shockingly coherent identity. Diego, given that you started us off, how does it look now that it's finished? We have your DLC for you, man. Here you go, like a cat bringing in a chipmunk.
It looks like a real corpse, a weird one, but a real corpse. But I have to say,
Well said.
in order to make a closing argument for this, I think it will be circled very good if we had animals, wild animals who do siege. I think that will be fantastic. I don't know. Use the elephant, chase them down, run to the opponent town center, and let all hell break loose. I don't know, something like that. Or like
That is-
the older cheat code that was in Age of Empires 2 that you control Gaia, all the animals, and you can attack people.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was really fun.
Weird but fun.
I had an idea for a scenario years ago that was based off of a historical event. It might have actually been in Paris during this one awful winter. The local wolf population got brave and actually besieged like a major French settlement. And wolves actually killed like hundreds of people over the course of a single winter. Imagine this hunting plus siege expansion having a scenario where you play as wolves besieging a town with hunters being the ones to fight you.
Nice.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I was looking it up and it seems like they were led by a wolf called like Cortoad.
Exactly. They were led by like a big boy wolf.
I think if there's any scenario where you get to control Ornwood the wolf, this would be it.
Precisely.
Yeah,
Isn't that
just
like
rename to whatever this thing is. Then you got it.
And just imagine in the release trailer, you just say, play as Ornlu the wolf murdering people. People will buy that shit in droves. Like, that sounds
I'd buy it.
awesome.
How many French peasants can you kill?
Thank you guys so much for participating in this. I think we came up with something really cool and shockingly cohesive. You guys came up with fantastic and well-grounded ideas. And to all of you, I really appreciate you participating in this fun little event. Maybe we'll do something else like this going forward. Any final thoughts before we sign off on this?
I kind of want to see the guy who spammed ducks to do it one last time.
Ask and you shall receive.
As an honorary part of this DLC, the last Exquisite Corpse Niv, like, kind of perfectly fit.
That's actually true.
Yeah, that does.
That's hard. Bring him in. Bring him
Siege,
back.
they can tunnel. God damn it, you're right. You're so true. Okay, canonical
the
Exquisite
DLC.
Corpse universe. In that case, to everyone who watched, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this wonderful disaster that ended up being great. And I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you want to see more content like this in future. But until then, my name is Robbie Howell, and ciao for now.
Yeah, bye.
Gotta get the ducks.